Hi everybody and welcome to Sean Cameron Photographic. Thank you so much for joining me again. And I hope you enjoy this one. I want to take you back 21 years ago. The year is 1999 and that time the virus we're all worried about was the Y2K bug that basically turned into nothing. We're all panicking it was going to shut down the computers, it was, everything was going to collapse. Flights were cancelled, everything. And it turned into nothing. In the UK, Tony Blair was enjoying his first term. In the USA, you guys were avidly watching the impeachment of Bill Clinton. And there was a guy called Vladimir Putin who'd just taken over from Boris Yeltsin in Russia, and we didn't know much about him. The euro currency was introduced, and in Europe, in the UK, we were fairly neutral about it. I've got to be honest. We weren't involved for a start, but yeah, it was something interesting, something exciting. But hey ho. From a personal note, this is the phone I was using. Stylish kids, huh? Yes, the Nokia 9110. Oh, yes. I felt the bee's knees carrying this one around. Everybody else was carrying one of these pretty much. The 3110, if I remember rightly. Yet again, another Nokia. But yeah, you could basically play a game called Snake on it and make a phone call. That was it. That was okay. That's all we expected from a phone in those days. The games we're playing, I believe the Game Boy Color came out, which was amazing because it was the first time that Game Boy had been in colour. And I was using Windows 98 because that was the popular model at the time. I tell you, in my household, we were all talking about Friends, where in Vegas, Ross and Rachel got drunk and married. That was the main subject on our household. Top of the music charts were Britney Spears was wowing us with Baby One More Time. Steps were, they were having fun with Tragedy. And Ricky Martin was living La Vida Loca, if I remember rightly. I'm sure that's how it was pronounced. And Star Wars The Phantom Menace had just come out. We're all questioning the inclusion of Jar Jar, of course, and the other popular phrase we're all doing was, and we were saying was, I see dead people because the Sixth Sense film had just come out. So that's the era we're talking about. Now in this era, as far as digital cameras were concerned, Kodak were the ones. There were various combinations of Fujifilm and Nikon, for instance. They produced the E2. And Canon, I also know, had deals with other people that they were doing digital cameras using their bodies. By the way, the E2, I think, is the most uncomfortable looking camera ever. Look it up, have a picture of it, and see what you think. To me, I want to get hold of one just to test it, but wow, yes, I better drop it. That'd be popular. Anyway, amongst all this, Kodak was selling their digital cameras for between £6,000 and £30,000, and they were the kingpin of digital. But when you think that house prices were actually about, the average house price in Britain was $75,000, that was one heck of a lot to pay for a digital camera. So the Nikon decided to release the D1, which is the thing you've all been squinting at to see if you can see what this is. It's here, the Nikon D1. was Nikon's first camera that they solely made themselves, apart from the sensor. They had to get somebody else to make that for them. But this was their first camera. So I thought I had to give it a go, give it a test. So I did. Give you a bit of information about it. It was described as the beginning of the end of the film era. A lot of the newspapers gave it to their photographers who staunchly wanted to stick to film. I was one of those people at the time. I wanted to staunchly stick to film. I didn't trust this newfangled digital business. But it's taken off and it got very popular, and this is the baby that made it popular. Oh yes, with its massive 2.17 meg sensor. Oh yes. Boy. It did 4.5 frames a second of continuous shooting if you've got a decent battery in it. And they styled it on the F5 film camera as a matter of interest. So yes, this is the camera that I thought I'd test and I thought I'd have a play with. So the first problem we have, and I'll just put that to one side. The first problem we had, I put my cards in, and I've got a number of cards, and I started off with 16, 32, 8, card error. Every single time, card error. Didn't like it. Found out 2 is the maximum it'll take. Just the 2. So okay, I can live with that. We'll do the 2. So I popped the 2 in. Next issue was I couldn't get an image on the rear LCD screen when I took a photograph. And after many Googling sessions, I discovered that a low battery could cause this problem. Now, a low battery to the dear old D1 is anything less than half. It considers that a low battery. So I ended up trying to charge it back up again, and it still didn't seem to work as well. So the charger has a refresh button. So I left it to recycle overnight to refresh. And lo and behold, the next morning I took some photographs and the screen came to light. So fantastic. So I took some photographs. And I'll show you the photographs as we're doing this. Don't get excited about it. Do not get excited about them. Now, I then decided that these photographs came out as either TIFF or JPEG, depending on what button I pressed on the back. So I thought it has a RAW capability, so naturally I do it to RAW. Now at the time, RAW was an interesting subject. Everybody was saying at around this time that this came out, why on earth would anybody want to use RAW for? What's wrong with JPEG? You know, RAW, you won't need it. Well, you won't use it. But I'm pleased they included it because, as you know, pros use RAW and everybody uses RAW. Why wouldn't you? So I had to set it to RAW. Now, on my cameras, it's basically a button and a dial on the back. I frequently actually change my cameras accidentally to JPEG from RAW, just purely accidentally. Used to do it a lot with gig photography because you're in the darkness and I'm pressing the wrong button trying to change something. This, on the other hand, this does not want you to change it at all. The first thing you have to do is set the camera to fine using the image quality button. Now, I don't know whether you can see this, but the image quality button is under this little metallic flap, and it's magnetic as a matter of interest, and it's got the quality button hidden there. So you press that and you turn the dial. No problem. I can cope with that. I can cope with that. I just want to show you this bit. This is so cute. Yeah. So, we did that. There's no RAW option on the menu. Okay. So I've looked at the manual and I've searched through the manual, and it's in bits and pieces through it, because I don't think they really wanted and expected anybody to need RAW, to be absolutely honest with you. And they certainly didn't expect people to need to change from JPEG to RAW in a moment's notice. So the way to do it is yet again to open my little flap. And it's custom setting number 28. Yes, it's done in numbers. You click the menu button here and you dial through using the rear dial until you get to number 28. Now, whether you want to use RAW, if it's a yes, it's a 0. If it's a no, it's a 1. Or it could be the other way around. I'll be honest, I can't remember off the top of my head. Little flap again. But you had to set it to that. Because otherwise, the raw data isn't available. And I believe it's actually not available 0 and available 1. And those are the ones, and you do that with the front dial. Then you have to go back to image quality, and then you have to go through the same process, and then you've got your raw option. Well, I've got to say it took me about 2 hours. If I did it again, it wouldn't take me 2 hours. It took me 2 hours to find out and work out how to do it. But yeah, I would say that would pretty much stump most teenagers of today. And they are, let's be honest, far, far better at technology than the rest of us. But I think I may well set a teenager onto that and see whether they can change it, just as a laugh. Because I remember back when we used to use zeros and ones, the binary system. And it's not quite binary, bless its heart, but it's certainly an interesting way of doing it. You've got, as I say, you've got custom settings from 1 to, I think, 29, and you then have the 0 or 1 option on each of them as to what you want to do. So anyway, so then I took some photographs, and the one thing I did notice was the quality, the white balance, was unbelievably over rich. Now, I don't know whether you've seen my f4 video using my f4, but if you did, you noticed that I said then that the prints you got off it were very, very rich. Now, is it because we were used to those rich coloured colours that Nikon decided to use the NTSC colour space to make them incredibly rich? I don't know. Maybe. You tell me if you know more. Let me know down below. But it seems very odd that they made them so rich. The only way to do it, if you use the normal setting, you know, the auto setting for the white balance, is actually to use sunlight setting. And oddly, that seems to, well, not oddly, that seems to tone it down a little bit. I mean, you can deal with it in computer. That's not a problem. It just amused me that, as in auto, you had that problem. The next problem with it, boy, are the highlights. You cannot get rid of blowing the whites out. And I know it's an early camera, and I'm being very critical, and I'm very fond of it. But yeah, the highlights were a real problem, and I'm still working on that. It's quite interesting. You can't retrieve them on the computer. You just can't. I'm so floored by that I can't say it. So, to be honest with you, I'm going to. You then. Oh, the next thing. Sorry, I nearly forgot this. The next thing is the batteries. The battery life, yes, it's okay, but what happens is it goes to halfway down, and as I'd heard, when the batteries get older, a bit of a design flaw in it is that when the batteries get older, the screen, obviously, as I said, stops working. It doesn't have enough energy to show the screen. But it's worse than that, because it has enough energy to work the shutter. So you think you've taken the shot, but the battery voltage is drops right after the shot, so the D1 hasn't got the energy to write the image information to the card. So what you end up with is a black image. So you've taken the shot, but stage 2 of the exercise hasn't taken place. And I found that happened with this particular battery when it gets to halfway. As soon as the pretty much after you've lose usage of the rear screen, yes, stop taking photographs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get another battery, a newer battery, and I'm going to give it a go to see what happens. I was going to show you loads of photographs. I was going to do a proper test on it, but I think this is probably more valid because I've given more information here in one go than I've seen on the internet. Remember, it took me 2 hours to find out, to glean the information to change it from JPEG to RAW. Now, that could be because I'm just thick, but at least people watching this will be able to go straight to it now. So, in a future catch-up one, I'll tell you how I get on with the new battery. I've said before, is it worth buying an old Pro camera for very little money rather than buying a new prosumer camera? And I think I found where the line is drawn. I would say yes to some of them, but I would say if you go back as far as 1999, I don't think it's a goer. I don't think it's reasonable. I think it's the difference in technology from now to then is too distant. I will still have fun playing with this. I will still have fun playing it, but it will be largely a memory on my shelf. So, thank you so much for joining me. And don't forget to subscribe because it really, really helps. And it helps you as well because you can see when I bring out a new video and who knows what the next one's going to be. If you liked it, please don't forget to like it because that does make a huge difference to me. And I look forward to seeing you all soon. Thank you so much for joining me. Bye-bye.